Hello, I'm Brandy Agerbeck of loosetooth.com, and I am currently in the lab. So the lab is a 3-day immersion into visual thinking through the lens of graphic facilitation. So I teach the lab 2 to 4 times a year. All kind of depends on what's going on and who's interested where and all that good stuff. And I just wanted to share a quick video from where we are right now. And we've got a lot of bright sun, so we're going to see the lighting do all sorts of tricky things. So I'm in the lab right now. There's our space while we're on lunch break, and I just wanted to show you a little bit about what is going on here. So group of 6 people joined me. We have a wonderful, wonderful group of 6. One thing that's really excited about this particular group is that none of them necessarily want to be me when they grow up. They all have different roles in different industries, and they want to bring these visual thinking skills into what they do. So I love it because this is a less homogenous group. People have all sorts of different experiences that they're sharing, different applications. So we're having much more of a broader conversation around visual thinking, around visual culture, around how people view images, create images, versus the sort of really tactical, the business of graphic facilitation or, the work necessarily at the wall. Even though in these 3 days, we're doing work at the wall, like you can see behind me. So let's see, we've got, you can see the big charts on the walls behind us. Here behind me is actually something I did in a previous lab, which was what we call a dissection. So I do a map and I do a drawing, folks watch me draw, and we actually pause. I pause and I tell people exactly what I'm thinking at that point in the drawing. So it really is getting into my mind and how I think about this as I do this work. So that's an example of a dissection I did in a previous lab. And then this group, the other charts around the room are folks doing that talk. So that same chunk of content. And that's where the big charts are behind me. Here at the summit, we've got these quotes on the wall. So I think this is going to be reversed. But this is a lovely Maya Angelou quote, which is, if you aren't trying to always be normal, if you are always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. So that's the Maya Angelou quote up there. Here behind me, let's see if we can get this in the shot. We've got, this is the biggest distinction between doing the lab in Chicago versus one of my, when I do it around the world, is that here in Chicago, you get this glorious materials table. So each person in the lab gets a really lovely kit. I don't see a kit quite open. Okay, we can go. Well, first the materials table, all sorts of things. Every Neuland color you could possibly want to try out. Different mediums. We have some pastels here. Different types of markers, like, what I did for the first, from 96 to 2007, good old Mr. Sketch. And then moving on to 2000 to now, I can't see it against the black, the Neuland markers. So lots of great stuff you get to experiment with. For folks who see me in Europe or other parts of the world, or like Australia, like I did before, can we see it? There's a kit. So that's somebody's kit there. And that's just an example. Here we've got, one big thing about the lab is that the agenda is emergent. It reflects exactly what the group needs. So this is a flip chart that's different things that we're thinking we want to work on before our 3 days are over. So that was a group created list of here's the kind of things we want to try while we're here together in the lab. And as we go, we check them off. I think with the sun, I can't show you this, but we also have the room is just absolutely wallpapered with our work, and also the flip charts around like specific exercises. So as we're working, for instance, one of our participants asked, is there kind of a what to look out for list when you do this work, like a checklist? And I said, well, not like a surgeon's checklist or, somebody who has an extremely technical checklist that they need to run through. I usually think checklist, I think like safety issues. Not so much that in this work, but then we spontaneously created a list of if you were to make a what to look out for list, as we're doing this work, what would be on it. So in our particular case, hierarchy, that there's structure and hierarchy within the charts, using scale for hierarchy, the aspiration to synthesize, to ladder up from the content up to what are the main concepts that are being shared. This is one thing in the Graphic Facilitators Guide, which is instead of using a lot of color, using color a lot, which is being very selective with the color you're using and making sure that color always is used in a meaningful way, to really look at that piece of paper as the entire chart. So instead of kind of getting into treating it sort of like lists on a big sheet of paper, looking at that whole sheet of paper as your territory. Another one on the what to look out for is making connections and creating flow within the charts. That you can always check your spelling later and make little fixes afterwards. To distill the language, so get down to the core idea versus sentences on the charts. Another one is to step back and look. You have one relationship to the chart when you're at arm's length with it, but once you sort of step back, you can see how is this legible to the audience, and you can definitely tweak things after that. And then one of my absolute favorites, or three of my absolute favorites from the Idea Shapers, anchoring an idea in the center, and then using clusters and buffers. So cluster is grouping similar things together, and buffer is the white space around those clusters that help you see those. So that's an example of one of the flip charts that we created together here in the lab. And yeah, so I would love to have you here. Right now it is early January. I love doing the January labs, even though I think a lot of people, January, Chicago, forget it. It is, it's actually great for airfare. It's great for hotel prices. It's great for sales on Michigan Avenue. For a lot of folks this week are here because several folks are in education, and this is before the semester begins again. So it's a great opportunity to start the year in the lab together. So those are the reasons I love the lab in January, despite what you may think. Yes, it is very, very cold out, this particular lab. But you know what? We're cozy, and in this, I feel like my cat kind of sunbathing right now. We're plenty warm inside. So right now it's the early January, and I'm working on my calendar of labs for the year. Right now the plan is around the EuViz conference in north of Copenhagen in late July. Definitely there'll be one in at that same location the week before, so July 25th to 27th. We'll have a lab there just the week before EuViz. Then I'm also looking to hopefully have another lab in Germany after EuViz, not directly after EuViz necessarily, but on that same trip. What I call a teaching tour, and then welcome folks back to Chicago, my favorite city and my favorite month, mid-October. So registration isn't open yet, but that will be coming soon. But again, absolutely love this lab. Love that we give ourselves these 3 days, and wonderful to see the amount of progress people have just over the course of the 3 days. Like, it is very much hands-on learning. You get up, you draw. We talk about what we drew. You get up, you draw some more. So it is and another thing is super, super love, like I said, is that it is very, very adaptive to the 6 people who join me in the room, and that the agenda is emergent. So we make this time, we craft this time, we shape this time into what we need as a group. So like I say on the registration page, if you are somebody who needs to know exactly what you're doing at 2 o'clock, that's not what this is. But if you want to spend 3 full days with an absolutely lovely group of people who are all there to learn and experiment and play and converse and grow like you are, this is the place to be. So I'm going to go eat my lunch now and get back to the lab. So thank you so much for watching.